It was a brisk fall morning with the sky just beginning to brighten as students at Waverly Middle School entered the building to begin their day. For them it was just another Thursday at school, but for me it was my first day of placement. I got there early and was ready waiting for them in my favorite blue and white sweater, excited to meet my mentor teacher and be in the classroom again. Wandering through the halls, searching for my mentor teacher's classroom, I couldn't help but notice how spacious and colorful the halls felt. I passed by a couple open areas with couches and chairs and tables, which I later learned were called collaborative spaces and are available for student and teacher use. It was in one of these spaces that I got to work individually with my focal students over the next few weeks of my visits. I worked with Kia from first hour and Jasmine from second hour. Kia and Jasmine are both students who enjoy reading and who their teacher views as stellar students in the discipline of English. On my first visit, I was able to ask them a few questions about their literacy practices and beliefs. Looking first at Kia, she is an 8th grader at Waverly Middle School. Her time outside of school is typically spent doing homework, talking to friends, watching TV, and walking around town. Each of these activities contributes to Kia's literacy funds of knowledge that she brings with her into the classroom, especially if we keep in mind that reading happens in nearly every activity we do in the forms of recreational, functional, educational, or social reading. As an avid and confident reader, Kia is currently partial to the fantasy of horror genres, citing a book named The Grimm Legacy as one of her favorites. As a writer, Kia mentions that she used to write short stories and journal entries pretty frequently as a way of venting. But as her schedule got busier, her time dedicated to writing decreased to only about once a month. In school, however, she writes every day. Kia also enjoys sports, although she does not play on any teams. She mentions that she likes to watch the Pistons play basketball with her father, which qualifies as engaging in literacy skills when the definition of text expands to include things such as video broadcasting and even sports themselves. Jasmine is also a big fan of basketball. In fact, she's been playing on a team for 6 years. In her free time, you could likely find Jasmine running track, doing her chores, cooking, reading a book, or doing her homework. She's an avid reader who recently finished a book called The Friendship Ring, which is a novel about 200 pages long that Jasmine read over the course of a week. Talking about her writing interests, Jasmine said that her mom encourages her to write about what she reads in her books, which serves two purposes. First, it gets her writing. Second, she can use her writing to look back and recall what was happening in the story when she last left off. Jasmine comes from a very large family and is one of 6 children. She and her twin brother are the oldest, followed by a younger brother, a set of twin sisters, and a baby sister. Having a large family and being one of the oldest siblings makes Jasmine very family-oriented. She discussed her reading and writing practices in her home as revolving around her family. Jasmine keeps a to-do list for her chores, helps her younger siblings with their homework, reads them stories, and helps cook dinner. Some of these activities did not come up right away when I asked her about her reading and writing at home, but after asking more provoking questions, Jasmine began to expand her view of what qualifies as a text to include some of the more unconventional forms. When I asked her about social media use as a form of literacy, she replied that she posts on Facebook when her or one of her siblings accomplishes something that they are proud of, such as winning a sports game. Jasmine's passion for her family is apparent in nearly all of her responses to my questions, even naming her parents as the most influential people in her life. Comparatively, Kia is more peer-oriented, naming her best friend as her most influential person. This difference just goes to show that even if students are sorted into similar demographics, at heart they are individuals whose varying experiences impact their learning in different ways. For the period of 3 weeks, I was able to get to know Kia and Jasmine more personally as we worked together on some of their assignments, such as a narrative essay. I saw some overlap between both students' attitudes towards literacy, one of which in reference to textbooks being the most challenging form of text they encounter. When I asked them to explain why, the common consensus was that it was because textbooks are really long, use more difficult words, and are not particularly engaging. Jasmine and Kia are both confident readers, but they agree that continuing to practice reading will lead to becoming better readers, especially if they are sure to read what the teacher assigns. The fact that both students gave heightened relevance to the text the teacher selects highlights not only the power we have as teachers in privileging certain texts over others by including them in our curriculum, but also that these messages are perceived by students, reinforcing how important it is for teachers to be aware of what kinds of texts we are presenting as important. Reflecting on my experience with Kia and Jasmine, I think there was definitely mutual learning that took place. I challenged them to think about themselves as readers and writers in a variety of contexts beyond just academic-related literacy activities. From working with me, they began to identify non-traditional texts such as the internet, recipes, and social media as texts, expanding their concepts of themselves as literacy learners. On the flip side, I learned that textbooks pose a challenge to students and often carry a stigma of being long, boring, and difficult to understand, causing them to be met with distaste and resistance from students. Furthermore, I think my mentor-teacher style of having students engage individually with literacy on computers has numerous educational advantages, but in my own preference, I would dedicate more class time to group work or full class discussions in the effort to build a community of critical readers and thinkers through a lens of social justice. I look forward to the remainder of my time at Waverly Middle School and to fostering a relationship with Kia and Jasmine as together we explore the concept of literacy.